Nintendo really had to go and mildly inconvenience me like that. Welcome back, everyone, to another update on me playing through all of the Zelda games in timeline order before the movie comes out. But before we get into the Zelda game that I just beat, we gotta talk about the movie for a little bit. When I started out, the Zelda movie had a release date of May 7th, 2027, which was a little more than a year away from when I started. But now Nintendo has moved it up 1 week exactly. So now the movie releases April 30th, 2027. This means that I have one less week than I originally planned to play through the games, but outside of that, I'm actually really excited about it. To me, it means that Nintendo has confidence in the movie, and I get to see it sooner, so that's really cool. I am going to have one less week, so I'm going to have to make that up somewhere, but I'm actually making pretty decent time, so I'm not too worried about it. I know this video is about Minish Cap, but I've actually completed all the way through Ocarina of Time. I'm just really behind on making videos, and the movie comes out in 290 days. So I think I'm making good pace right now. But with that out of the way, let's jump into Minish Cap. Minish Cap is the second game in the Zelda timeline, and it's also the first 2D game in the Zelda timeline. Although, depending on who you talk to, myself included, you could argue that it's the third game in the Zelda timeline because Age of Imprisonment exists. And yes, I do consider this the second game in the Zelda timeline, which would make Minish Cap the third, but for some reason that's super controversial. People think this is way later in the timeline, but that's a topic for another day. We're going to talk about that later. And this is a spin-off game. It's not even a mainline Zelda game, so we're not going to play it anyway. So with that out of the way, Minish Cap is the second game in the timeline that we'll be playing. I have played Minish Cap before, but I've never beaten it before. I've beaten through the 2 dungeons on a previous playthrough, but this was my first time playing all the way through, and I had a lot of fun with it. The story, while interesting, isn't necessarily anything special. It's pretty tame, and it's actually heavily implied within the game that the story takes place over one single day, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, it's nothing amazing, it's nothing great. I don't want to compare it to Skyward Sword because I don't think that's a fair comparison. It is a 2D game versus a 3D game. But yeah, the story is good, it's enjoyable, it's interesting, but I don't think you're necessarily missing out on a huge part of the story if you don't play this Zelda game, but it's still fun. If you've been following along with the past game, Skyward Sword, you know that at the end of that game, the inhabitants of Skyloft come to the ground, they start living there, and their descendants end up establishing Hyrule as a kingdom. Well, to start off Minish Cap, and in traditional Zelda fashion, we get a legend of a time that has since passed, and this legend is about the people living in a land, and the darkness is about to consume all of the world, shadow is going everywhere, all of these demon monsters are about to take over everything, typical Zelda legend stuff. And then the Picori, this specialized race, come down from the sky, and they grant the hero of man a magical sword and a golden light, and then he uses that power to chase back the demons, seal them away, everything. Pretty typical Zelda stuff, but it's not the Master Sword, it's the Four Sword, or the Picori Blade. So the people enshrine the Picori Blade, it becomes a really important part of their culture, and then years and years and years pass, and then we come to modern day Link, or you as the character, whatever you decide to name your character. So the game starts with Zelda coming to the blacksmith's house to find you, because you're the blacksmith's apprentice, and of course, you're sleeping, so she wakes you up and she invites you to go to the festival with her. I like this because it instantly tells us that Zelda and Link have an existing relationship. I just prefer it that way in Zelda games, when Link and Zelda already have a relationship instead of meeting each other during the events of the game. I just think it's cooler. I don't know why. I just like it better for the storytelling. So Skyward Sword was like that, and Minish Cap is also like that. Even if it's to a smaller scale, the game itself is at a smaller scale. So they already have this existing relationship, they're childhood friends, and they go to this festival together. But before they go, the blacksmith asks Link to take this sword with him. So Link takes the sword and they go to the festival. So you go to the festival with Zelda, you have some fun, and then you head to Hyrule Castle to deliver the sword that the blacksmith gave you to Hyrule Castle. And as you're approaching the castle, they bring out the Picori Blade, which is enshrined in this chest thing, and the king announces that the winner of this really cool competition they just had gets to touch the Picori Blade as part of this sacred tradition that they have. So the winner comes out, it's this suspicious-looking dude named Vati, and as he's approaching the Picori Blade, he lets out some dark magic, and people try to stop him, but he ends up destroying the Picori Blade and releasing all of these demons into the world. And then he turns Zelda into stone, and it turns out he's a really bad guy. So all of these demons are released, the Picori Blade is broken, and Vati is on the loose, taking over everything. So the rest of the game is pretty much just you stopping him. You have to turn Zelda back to normal, you have to fix the Picori Blade, and then you have to defeat Vati. That's pretty much the whole story. There's a little bit more here and there, but that's the big stuff. You then meet your companion for the game, who's Eslo, this little green hat figure, and I think it's really interesting how they incorporate it into the game, how Eslo is literally Link's hat. It's always fun and unique how every game has like a unique reason for why Link wears the green clothes that he does, and it's fun that his hat in this game actually is his companion. It's kind of cool. I'm not the biggest fan of Eslo's personality. He kind of annoys me and irritates me a little bit, but it is fun. There is some playful banter there, and the mechanic that he brings to the game is the core mechanic of the entire thing, which is that you can shrink down super small, and that's awesome. I love that. I think it's super fun. It introduces some great puzzles to the game, and most of the dungeons are built right around it, so it's really cool. I don't love Eslo's personality, but everything else about him is pretty awesome. Going along with the shrinking mechanic, when you are shrunken down, you can interact with the Picori, which is really cool. I think it's super fun that there are these super big like villages and encampments of Picori inside of what would otherwise be just a tiny insignificant part of the overworld. So that's really fun that these things that are normally insignificant, like a leaf or an acorn, are all of a sudden really important, and there's a whole group of people and a whole way of life inside of that you can interact with, and they'll usually help you find dungeons or progress throughout the game. So the Picori are super cool, and the whole mechanic is just awesome. One of the only big pieces of lore that you get throughout the game that isn't at the beginning or end of the game comes through the connection between Eslo and Vati, which is really cool, because you learn that they both are originally Picori, and that they both are mages, which of course we already know, but that Vati was an apprentice under Eslo when they were Picori, and they were studying together and doing magic together, and then Eslo became really greedy and stole this magic cap and used his dark magic to turn Eslo into the green cap that he is now, and went off on his own to become this dark mage that we see him now. So that connection is really cool, that they know each other and that they have this history. It adds a little bit, but it's nothing crazy, but it is cool, especially for the scale that this game is at. The game consists of 6 dungeons, most of which are decent to good. I enjoy most of them to some extent, but I really like the last 2 specifically, the Wind Palace and Dark Hyrule Castle. And then, of course, it ends with you fighting Vati. And I think the way this final battle, final dungeon is designed is really cool. It's very combat heavy. You're fighting your way through a lot of big enemies. And there's this specific part at the end where Vati is on the roof of the castle with Zelda, who's still stone, and he's like absorbing her light force so he can take over the world. And once you hear the bell on top of the castle chime for the 3rd time, the 3rd toll of the bell, he has completed his spell and it's over and she's gonna die. And there's this actual mechanic in the game where if you don't beat a specific fight in enough time, you'll hear the 3rd bell and the game will end. So not only do you have to not die, but you have to defeat the enemies fast enough so that 3rd bell doesn't chime and you can reach Vati to stop him before he completes his spell. So I thought that was a really interesting mechanic of actually having a time limit, but you don't see it. You just have to know that it's urgent. And then the final battle is fun. I thought it was done well. The final phase of the final battle I thought was really interesting because there's this mechanic where he's shooting his arms up from the ground and you have to use the magic staff to flip them upside down and then go inside of them. And it took me forever to figure out that that's what you were supposed to do. I don't know if I just was doing it wrong or wasn't picking up on a cue or a hint or something, but it took me a while to actually put that together. And then once I put it together, it wasn't that hard. I finished pretty quickly, but I could not figure that out. I had to like cycle through all of the items in my arsenal and then I landed on it, and I felt like an idiot once it worked. And then you save the day, you save Zelda, everything is returned back to normal, Vati is sealed away in the Four Sword, and everything's good. So that's pretty much the whole story. It's not crazy, it is interesting, it's fun, but like I said, it's nothing huge. If you were to skip it, you wouldn't actually miss out on the overarching connections to other Zelda games, with 2 exceptions, but those Zelda games also are minuscule in comparison to the overarching story. The things that really stand out in this game, with it not being the story, is a lot of the items that you get to use and the art, both the art style and the music. This is a phenomenal art style. It makes the world feel very lively and fun and whimsy, and the music is just perfect. I love it. I'm like humming some of those songs all the time ever since I finished this game. So those are some of the standouts. Like, some of the items you get to use in this game are great. The mole mitts, the gust jar, the staff of Pachi, the magic staff. Like, there's just some awesome items in this game that really feel cool to interact with the world. And like I said, the art style and the music. Those are the three big things that I loved about this game. Unfortunately, I did not love a lot of the in-between dungeon tasks you had to do in the overworld. I felt like a lot of it was busy work, just a lot of fetch quests, and it got old really fast, and I just wanted to get to the next dungeon, because the dungeons are pretty fun. And just a lot of those tasks, like the library task, was awful. I was so done with it. And it just, I want to focus on the fun things, and I want the overworld to be fun because it is a very colorful and whimsy overworld, and unfortunately, a lot of that busy work took away from that. Ultimately, I think Minish Cap is a really good comfort game. It's nothing amazing, it's not the best at anything in the Zelda series, but it feels very safe in a good way and very comfortable. It's something I want to play when I'm tired and I just want to lay down and be done for the day. It's something that I can just feel good with, and that's the kind of game that it's trying to be, and it succeeds really well at that. I think I can sum up all of my thoughts with this. Minish Cap's biggest strength is its simplicity, and when it loses that simplicity, it becomes weaker. It loses what makes it special. And that's everything I have to say about Minish Cap. So next up is Four Swords, which I've already played through. I'm just behind on making videos, but I've really been enjoying this. It's been fun to play through the games and then record my thoughts and kind of vlog my progress throughout them. So I hope you've been enjoying this too. Let me know your thoughts on Minish Cap down below, whether you agree or disagree with me. Let me know what you think about my videos. I'd love any feedback, any thoughts. But thank you so much for watching to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.